Have Vance going there. All right, Vance. To order. And we've got some very special guests here with us today, Eric Lindros and Chris Nowinski. And to make the most out of this opportunity as we look at sport-related concussions here across Canada, we have votes that take place in this place. And we've got one coming up. It's going to be at 6:15. So what we'd ask for consensus from the members is that we break only right at 6:10 to give Eric and Chris the most amount of time. We're going to go into votes. That may take about half an hour or so, and then we'll be back and we'll extend that time if we have consensus. I've heard from some of the members that that's all right, so that again we can hear from these great witnesses. So on that note, I don't want to take up any more time. We are going to get started with Mr. Eric Lindros. People, I'm sure he's a Canadian icon, and we have watched his career, storied career through the NHL. Mr. Lindros, you have the floor.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting us here today. It's an honor to be here, and hopefully we can talk about some ideas and discuss a little bit about the past, but. I think it's far more important to have a game plan going forward than to be looking at the past and being negative about it. I think we learn from the past, but let's really focus on the positives. And I'm glad you guys have put this together and happy to be here. So I'm more of a answer type of person. So if you want to get started in that fashion, Peter, I'm sure and open with that. I got some different ideas.
I think the members are itching to ask you many questions. We really want to hear about your story and what kind of change you would like to see when it comes to addressing the issue of concussions. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, it's in a rotational order.
Sure.
So we'll start with the Liberals, then over to the Conservatives and the NDP, and
sure.
We'll keep going in that rotation. So we start with Mr. Fisher.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Eric, for being here. We've talked over the past weeks about concussions as, whether it be prevention, diagnosis, treatment. I know that you are a big, you talk a lot about prevention, but I was reading about Arthur Brown's research at Western. And you said, I think it's your quote, "It is the first time I've seen work that could result in quicker recovery from concussion symptoms." So that fascinated me because I've read as much as I could in the last couple of months since this committee was formed, and I've not heard of, until I read this, work that you could recover more quickly. I thought maybe you could tell us just a little bit about.
I would love to tell you more about it. I wish that Arthur Brown was finished his research and was further along, and this might be part of it. He has worked hard, and we're hopeful of positive results or negative results for that matter. But I think that when you think about research, you want to get things happening as quickly as possible. And I'm not so sure that I think overall, I think we can do better. I think when you look at the system of research, are we collaborating enough? When I look at one, it's hard to raise money. Two, it seems that, and this is just my opinion. I've asked probably about 30 different researchers for their opinion as we're structuring something called Rowan's Legacy Foundation, and it's kind of a three-part situation where we're looking at research and how we can do research better, how we can make it more efficient, more effective. How can we get to our results and tell the world about our results quicker? And then when we do have our results, how can we get through them and how can we translate them into something that's clean, that's well vetted and ready for the street? And then on the third part would be, how do we handle the street? How do we market it? How do we present the findings as quickly as possible? So you're coming right out of the research arm, right into the street. And we've got a bunch of different ideas on that. And if I could just touch on one is a lot of people come up and they have questions about their kids going through certain situations. And I'm just so confused as to why we can't, as a nation, blanket things. Why can't we have, protocols, the one protocol across our nation. This is, I just don't get it. Whether you're, certainly there's some things in and out that you're in different sports. There's going to be a couple of different things that you're going to look at in terms of getting back to play. But for the most part, for 90% or so, whether you're in horseback riding or playing soccer, it's the same thing. And we're talking about sport concussion here. A lot of what's happening is concussion that's not occurring in sport, that's occurring in play, that's occurring in when I mean play, playgrounds or kids at school and things like that. So I don't think we want to just forget about that. I think that if we did this properly, it would blanket much more than just the sport. I think it would be cost effective. Doing it once, we have the great doctors. I mean, if you look at what goes on and who's representing Canada, we've got the names of the names. We've got great research facilities. We have McGill, UBC, Calgary, Western. I mean, it goes on and on. U of T. I mean, it's everywhere. We've got the people. How can we get this all as in a group and working as one? That's really where I see frustration.
So if we're talking about treatment, diagnosis, prevention, that Arthur Brown's work touches on treatment. And I know you've got lots of ideas about prevention, and we could get to that in a second. I'm just thinking about diagnosis, again, going back to something you've said. Just because you've not received a knockout hit does not mean that you've not had an impact on your brain. We had a moment to speak before the committee started, and I was telling you about my son who plays hockey, who's never had a concussion. Yeah. But I got to tell you, as a hockey parent, I started thinking about that statement that you made.
Sure.
And I also totally agree with your statements you've made in the past about getting away from the sport of hockey and doing something totally different.
Right.
After May or whenever your season is finished. So I thought maybe you could just talk a little bit about that accumulation of small hits and maybe very minor injuries that never get looked at as, or may never be a concussion, but could actually do damage to the brain.
Well, I just think overall, you're right about this. I look back to when I played, and hockey would start. It's kind of like school. Hockey would start in the fall, and we play into to before exams, really, or when school was into May, and then you'd have June, July, August, and most of September that you really weren't doing much. And what that allows you to do, and the science has taught us, is that it allows the brain to take a break, to grow. The brain always wants to grow and to replenish itself and to heal. By playing 12 months a year, we're not giving the brain that chance, that opportunity to get it back to where it was at the start of the previous year. So if you think about a pickup truck and you're running down a dirt road or a farm road or a cottage road or whatever the case may be, and you don't every once in a while pull it in for servicing, something's going to fall apart sooner or later. It's inevitable that you're not going to be right there. Now, maybe that truck will last a long time, and hopefully it does. But I think we should really look at taking better care of ourselves in that. Plus, you become a better athlete, in my mind, when you're able to work your feet in soccer or improving yourself in baseball with hand-eye. Everything correlates and works together, so that when you start up the next season, you're not skipping a beat. You're actually healthier.
Okay, so you've veered from a little bit from diagnosis into prevention. Tell me a little bit we've only got a minute left, but tell me a little bit about some of the ideas you have for prevention, notwithstanding the taking a break in May.
Well, a great doctor that we have here in Canada, researcher, Dr. Carolyn Emery's out of Calgary, and she did research on hitting. And it was, you guys cannot find this shocking at all, but you take out hitting and injuries go down, concussions go down accordingly. And I guess you have to go through that and to do that type of research and get it done. And I'm happy that she did it. But so I look at hockey and I look at what a beautiful game. Why are we starting to hit when not everyone has gone through puberty? Why can't we wait for kids? You know what it's like when you're 12 and some people have gone through, and why can't we wait till we're 15? Focus on our skills, focus on our skating, focus on other aspects of hockey. Trust me, you can learn to hit and receive a hit from 15 on and you'll be just fine. Trust me, it's not, you're not going to be behind the eight ball in any stretch. And if everyone else is doing it, then everyone's on the equal playing field anyway. I just think that let's get through that danger zone where there can be a big discrepancy in size and strength, I think it clears it out, and what Carolyn did was fantastic and allows us to look at it. Now, that's been out there for years, but what have we done to take her great information and to put it into practice?
Thank you, Mr. Lindros. We're moving over to the Conservatives. Mr. Nuttall?
Thanks again for coming today and represent a region which I think you're pretty familiar with in the Barrie area. Your Uncle Paul there was
Principal.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's interesting because you come from the hockey world, obviously. Barrie's known as some of the greats have come out of there and some hard-hitting hockey. And interestingly enough, we now have Concussion North, which is one-of-a-kind clinic open up there. And we also, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Gary Goodrich, but he is on the speaking tour specifically on concussions with UFC fighter and is from there and is in this Concussion North clinic. One of the things that we
Must
heard,
be busy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. One of the things that we heard in the previous meetings where we had testimony was on the tracking of individuals, specifically as you're talking about the juniors, pre-pubescent, and able to track what's going on with our young people. And so if you're a hockey player, and maybe you play soccer in the summertime and you're playing hockey in the winter, there's no single tracking system in place. And so you were talking quickly here about protocols, single processes that we can put in place to be able to manage that individual, that client, if you will, that's going through the world. What recommendations do you have for us to be able to actually implement? Because you've said, okay, this is a thing that we need to do. You can't understand why it hasn't happened. So tell us, because you've been on the inside of this world, how to do it, and then we can actually look at that as well.
Well, that's one, the communication part between school, between your coaches, whether it be your high school coach or your travel coaches or whatever coach you would like to have. I think it's completely different than the regular protocols, and I think they're a bit separate here. In dealing, there's companies out there. There's a really strong company here based in Canada that deals with the communication between the teachers, between your parents. You can make it as widespread as you want or as narrow as you want, and it's extremely effective. The other part was more a broader sense of protocol.
Mr. Lindros, just so the company that does that, just
The company is named Privet.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
So we can look at that as well. Yeah.
they're very good at what they do, and for full clarity, I help them out.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't know.
When you started doing work on this, and I know concussion is something that affected you as well as your brother, and you started working with the university hospital, I believe, in London. You've put your own resources behind this as well as being a face and raising. Have you found that government as a whole has been open to some of the suggestions you've made, or have we been, and I say we, this is not a partisan current government, I'm saying over the years,
Yeah,
have we been open?
we just started with. I mean, Rowan's Law in Ontario was just passed.
Yeah.
There was a group of 12 or 14 of us, led by Dr. Dan Cass, that were told to come up with solutions, and we did so over the course of that year. And we had it in mind that what we'd submitted was something that we didn't just look for, the highly populated areas of Ontario. We thought it could be something that it could be spread throughout Canada. I don't want to call it a floor level, but something that was attainable, if you catch what I'm saying. We did that. We worked hard at it. We submitted it. I'm a bit confused now where Rowan's Law stands in Ontario. I thought it was really something that was fantastic. So hopefully the provincial government there has got a plan up their sleeve, and it could start to be rolled out. But there's a number of things in there that we thought we addressed, and one of them was making sure that in the schooling system, medical schooling system in particular, that everyone was getting hours based on concussion, learning about concussion. And what we saw in the past is that people were sustaining concussions, and because they needed to have clearance, they were not being honest and open about their situation, because the lineup to get into the doctor was 2 weeks. And once you get in, then it's another, it was just too much. So how can we make this more widespread where people can come in and get out and to see professionals that they need? And to be quite up to date in concussion, I mean, our research is so far behind. It does not take weeks to do this. I mean, unfortunately, we're pretty much up to date in about a 4 or 5 hour video on the topic, and I would like to see that change as well. But anyway, we have what we have. I just like to see it more widespread.
You have one more question or no?
2 minutes. Yeah.
Beautiful. Speaking of Ontario, one of the things I've heard from Concussion North is related to the billing by doctors with concussion-related injuries. So there isn't a specific billing cycle for concussions. So they basically have to bill under a very limited dollar per hour, which then allows them almost no ability to give the additional services that are needed. And so if you're looking at a comprehensive approach to, having both the doctor who specializes in head injuries, as well as the general practitioner, as well as perhaps it's somebody who's going to help them on exercises, etc. It's the money just isn't there. I don't think that was covered in Roman's law. In cases where you've seen in the professional environment, is it the teams that pick up most of the bills to treat this?
It occurs now, but I would assume so. And
Okay.
we really didn't have a whole lot going on in the past. A lot of the protocols that were occurring in the mid 90s and early 90s were, a lot of them are still being used right now.
Interesting. In terms of healing for the summer months, is there a recommendation that you've seen come out related to that? And I think you talked about it a little bit, but that we can look at specifically that says take this much time off for this sport, this much time off helps the brain regenerate and heal.
This is the hard part about all this, is you're never going to find a real black and white definitive answer. Every body's different. Every brain's different. Everyone's going to react differently to different things. Is there a specific time? You're never going to come up with that. No one's going to agree with that. But common sense says that if you continually bash your truck down the road, something's going to give, right? I think we've got to start moving on with a lot more common sense as opposed to, the numbers here or the days here. I think we should just we know what's right. We know in our heart what's right. Let's move forward. And if you choose not to, that's your choice. But let's lay it out and inform people as much as possible about what the options are for them and why.
Thank you. We're going to move over to the NDP and Ms. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lindros. I follow your advocacy work all the time, and it's extremely important right now because we do know with this issue, besides having a common sense approach, it is going to take some culture changes as well. So just to give you a general heads up then with my time, I'm going to ask you about some of what you see as the low-hanging fruit and the opportunities for us to seize on, especially with regards to using a blanket approach, but also, so I will be asking you about that, to speak on that, but can you start with talking a little bit about what you think could be done in terms of a culture change? We did have Rugby Canada's director, Paul Hunter, came and talked to us about the development of Rowan's Law and talked to us a little bit about they've developed a culture change initiative, which is like the zero tolerance. And maybe you have some ideas about how we could get our heads around that and being part of a general narrative that includes concussion awareness in that kind of context. So I'll just leave that to you to talk about that and about opportunities with blanket approaches. So,
okay. First of all, I think it's improved. I think now when parents are going out and they're watching hockey, yes, they're cheering for their kid. They're looking out for their kid. They're looking out for their kids' teammates. But I think more and more you're seeing people look out for the other team as well, which is amazing. It's what we want. This is starting to happen. The communication's been there. It's been moving. Now we have a window to really define it and to clean it up and to work within it. Let's start with low-lying fruit you mentioned. hits to the head. Ken Dryden speaks to this all the time. You hit someone in the head, just to make it black and white. Any hits to the head, I'm sorry, but you're penalized. That would clean up a lot. I think that's a very easy one. That is simple. And what you're going to find too is if you start it in the culture young, and it's spoken about at school, it's going to progress as people grow. I think the school system to me is the way that we really inform. It's, to spend a day in Ontario, we have Rowan's Law Day, and the idea was, let's take an hour once a year or an hour and a half once a year, and let's really go through what concussion is and what to be looking for. Let's look for it within. Let's look for it in our friends. Let's look for it in the people that we're going to be competitive against. Let's make sure that we're all safe. That's our big concern. So starting young and moving our way up. I sit there and I think, well, why can't we have something where, depending on your grade, all the grade ones throughout Canada, let's start there. Let's start there on Rowan's Law Day. And their messaging in grade 1 is a little bit different than grade 2, a little bit different than grade 3. And as you progress and get older and you're more mature and you're understanding more, then the message correlates to the age group. I think starting in the school system and just for that one day, just for that hour and a half, would make a huge difference. And it's possible. The information's there. And God knows we have amazing doctors in Canada that can vet this out. It's about getting all the groups to sit back and say, we want to work under one hood. A lot of people are trying and a lot of people are pulling on the rope. But I think we get further ahead if we work together as one. And if you're receiving federal money or provincial money or government money, you kind of tell them what to do a little bit, right? This is how we're going to change. This is what we'd like to see. We're not shoving it down your throat, but let's just change this a little bit and let's see how this goes.
Can you give us I don't know where my time is, 2.5 minutes. Can you give us an example of how, that's partly what the mandate of this committee is to take testimony and make recommendations with that, and assuming the testimony is based on evidence, right? So can you give us a little bit more specifics with the rest of the time that I have? What would you like to see a directive if I'm giving federal dollars to a group that I have to, I'll be hypothetical and then you can respond. Let's try that. So you can't have federal dollars unless you're going to share your research with like-minded organizations. Is that what you mean?
Sure. Let's start there. Yeah. If you've got the best imaging machines at McGill and Western, what programs can we set up where the load is being shared, where they're working and communicating together? One might be better at one part than the other. Let's work together and get this done faster. Let's not just let it sit there with one group. Let's work together. Let the community, and something might overflow into another area of research. But if you're helping and assisting purchase that machine, then I would think you have a say.
About a minute and a bit.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you don't just mean sharing information then, you mean sharing the actual resources to do the research and get the evidence together. Like imaging, you talked about
imaging,
it.
but if you had... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I want you to go ahead. As much time for
I just, my thought was if we could put forward, if people were good at blood biomarkers, let's get all our best blood biomarker people together. Let's get them working on a project together and collaborating together. And maybe they're missing something. Maybe someone's missing something along the way. I always think that if you get into a situation, it's not just me and Peter that are going to sit here and talk about concussion. We're going to get a whole group together and we're going to work. We're going to get as many ideas floating around, and then we're going to take them. We're going to go through them. We're going to shrink them down, and we're going to pick our 4 or 5 targets, and we're going to go at it. And if we're not making the group wide enough, and I don't think research is making the group wide enough, and they're not working together as nicely as they could be. There's a lot. You think pro sport is fierce? You should see these researchers. It's unreal. It is fierce, and it's very competitive in the research world. So let's get it up. Let's have timelines. Let's have let's look into how we can improve on things. Money's hard to come by. and it's Canadians dollars. So let's show what's working, where the money's going, what's progressing, and what we've come out of it.
Thank you. We're going to move over to the Liberals now with Dr. Doug Olfson.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir, for coming. Now, we talked about one of the things that we've heard so far is that one of the big things is with concussions is, of course, prevention. We want to prevent. And you actually, this expresses something you said with, there should be penalties, severe penalties with hits to the head, this sort of thing. Of course, something that's very controversial in professional hockey, particularly the NHL, is the issue of fighting. They don't have fighting in the junior leagues. They certainly don't have fighting. You won't see that in the Olympics. And it's technically against the rules in any game, and yet the NHL still tolerates it. It's still there. The game goes on. The people are still on the ice. Why does the NHL still tolerate fighting the way they do?
I can't speak for the NHL, and quite honestly, anytime you mix athletics and money, it gets the lines blur. I don't think you focus there. I think that's the top end, and if you work on the culture making its way through, I think you're going to see an effect at the end of the stream, as opposed to doing anything up top and having an effect. I think if you look at the OHL, and I can speak to the OHL and the CHL junior hockey, Dave Branch. Dave Branch has done a fantastic job. He was the first one to implement the big 10-game suspension. Anybody swings or gets carried away, it's not a 1 or 2 game suspension anymore. It's a 10. It's a 12-gamer. It is a 20% of your season.
That's in which league? That's in the
major junior.
junior,
Ottawa
yeah.
67s. Whatever.
Okay, so why wouldn't you have that in the NHL?
I'm leaving the NHL alone.
Yeah. No, the reason I ask is that it's something that there's a lot of young players aspire to that.
Yeah.
And you have college players.
You're seeing
want to
though
be,
that
and a lot of them emulate that.
Yeah.
And although there are penalties when they do it, it's common to say, "Yeah, I got in my first fight," and they're encouraged by this behavior. Even if
you're
it's
not going to change
tolerated.
it though, right?
Pardon me?
I don't think you're going to change it.
No.
I don't know. I think the way to change it, if you're going to have any effect on it, is like we talked about, is through the minor system and working its way up, so that the players that are coming through as peewees, as midgets, as bantams and midgets and junior have grown up in surroundings where it just wasn't there. The fighting wasn't occurring, and then when it goes on further, it'll pretty much die out. I think if you look at fighting rates over the past 5 years or 10 years, I think they've declined dramatically.
Yeah, I mean that's good to hear, but
Yeah.
why couldn't a professional hockey league put in the same rules that the
I don't know.
OHL? Like, is there any moral reason for a lot tolerating the way they do with the laxer rules than at the junior league where there's a
I
significant
can't
penalty
speak
if
for
you
the
do it?
NHL. In fact, I still have hopes that they will look at concussion and help out in one form or another in terms of aiding some research. Dr. Mulder and I approached the concussion working group of the National Hockey League at the All-Star game in LA. Dr. Mulder is the longstanding doctor of the Montreal Canadiens. And we asked for $1 million a team. Whether you piggyback with the NFL, we didn't come with a specific game plan because it's their money. They're going to do whatever they want to do anyway. But if you want to put it towards imaging at McGill or Western, or you want to do something else in blood, or whatever you want to do, let's just do something and let's start focusing on being productive here and being proactive. But unfortunately, it hasn't occurred. But I still I hold a bit of hope that it would. So if you want to get off the NHL, it helps me,
Yeah.
continue to
Okay,
believe
well,
that
thank you.
we
Yeah.
still get some money down the pipe.
Sure.
Sure.
Now, another issue with prevention is, of course, equipment. I'm old enough that I still remember watching the NHL when helmets were actually very unusual.
Yeah.
I watched Bobby Orr playing without a helmet.
Yeah.
All these are the greats of the time
Right.
playing without helmets, and then you saw it was maybe one player on the team might have a helmet. Are there current standards? I mean, I'm assuming is it now mandated that you wear a helmet when you play in the NHL?
It is. I actually played with the last guy who didn't, Craig McTavish.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's how far I go back. So, no, it is. and all the way through. I think if you go to the local outdoor rinks, I know that if it's not law, they're certainly telling people and asking people to put helmets on, even if it's a free skate, which makes perfect sense to me. I mean, I think that's wonderful to do it. Even the best skaters at times fall and can injure themselves, and having a helmet on, while it's not the end all be all, it does protect. Now, it's not going to protect so much with concussion. I don't think everyone keeps talking about the equipment. I don't believe that's the case at all. I think a chest to chest situation, your brain is still shaking within. A helmet's not going to help that. I don't see how equipment's going to make that change.
All right. I guess last question. I have
Got about a minute.
Okay, thank you. Have there been any other, as you say, there are rules now you have to, have there been any substantial changes? Like are there standards of the type of helmet, or is there anything beyond the helmet in the way of protection, facial protection?
Not that I'm aware. I think mouth guards. Most of the guys wear mouth guards. I think it's pretty smart to do. Helmets have changed, but not, not drastically. They've improved, and they're always working at making things better. But again, it's not the equipment. When you've got two bodies, and the speed of the game right now is just so quick, and you've got them colliding, and it's inevitable that they're going to collide. A helmet's not going to do, a helmet's not going to do anything, even if they're slower. In many of the situations. So, listen, these things are going to occur. Concussions are going to occur. It's not to say to our kids, let's go sit on the couch. It's so much safer on the couch. Go watch your blah blah blah. Let's not make people afraid. Let's say that they are going to occur, and when they do, we are ready and organized and prepared for you, and we can get you back onto the pitch, the rink, when you're safe, when you're sound, and you can get back out and have some fun. I mean, that's really what we want to do, and back to school. I mean, it's not just the athlete or the kid that's missing school because they're not feeling well and they're going through a concussion thing. It's the parent that's having to miss work. The trickle effect and the wave effect.
We're going to move over to the Conservatives now, and so Mr. Martel, and en français.
From Quebec.
Yeah.
Ouais. Ouais. Eric.
Can you hear me? Eric, testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Well, to begin with, I'd like to thank you very much for being here today. And I think you work very hard on the issue of concussions. I coached a long time in the Quebec Junior Hockey League, for 18 years, in fact. And I was behind the bench when there was the game between Ontario and Quebec City, the Montreal Forum. And I'm just taking this opportunity to tell you this. I saw you play from at 16 years of age. And the reason I'm saying this is that you were one of the players that impressed me the most at that age. I saw Crosby, Cavalier, Brad Richard, but at 16 years of age, I'd never seen a player that was so much at the top of his game as you were. And that concussion that you got, well, we just didn't believe that it was true. Everyone, the pros, the juniors, we thought you were invincible. You were a great skater. You were so effective. Now, just a question here. The big distinction, we're much more aware of what concussions entail nowadays. Now, back in those days, how is it that this was less apparent than over the past 5 years? Is it a question of speed? At that time, you struck other players at top speed, and there are other players, I'm sure, that got concussed when you body blocked them, or checked them rather. But do you think that it's the equipment that has led to an increase in the number of concussions?
Well, first of all, thank you for your kind words. Equipment, no. I think what happened in the 90s was really two or three really massive impacts. I remember being hit in Pittsburgh in an afternoon game by Darius Kasparaitis, and kind of coming to or being in the Pittsburgh dressing room or in the visitors dressing room, but they had all the logos of the Pittsburgh Penguins everywhere, and I thought I got traded to Pittsburgh. I guess the silver lining was at that particular moment I had a chance to play with Mario Lemieux. But kidding aside, I mean it was a great big. It was just a huge impact. Again, with Scott Stevens in the Game 7 of the semifinals, pulled a bit and coming over and he hit me. He hit me up top as I'm reaching and poking. Those are just really, really, truly big impacts. Do I think the numbers are going up? I think to a certain extent because awareness. And I'd like to think that people are being honest. Again, I don't look to pro sport for this because you've got a situation where you've got a contract coming up. You don't want to be labeled as the guy that's had concussion problems. It's going to affect you've got your family, you got your kids, so on and so forth. I think we leave pro sport out of it. But if we can be completely honest all the way through minor hockey and to culture, bring that into play where, you know what, let's be honest with ourselves here. Where do you truly feel? And at times the worst person to ask is the person that's concussed themselves. So I think in terms of common sense, we take a little extra time. We go on the cautious side. But I think there was a bit of a peak in terms of because of the awareness, but which is great. That people are talking about it and they're being a little bit maybe, they're looking out for themselves. But I think the numbers have been pretty steady the last few years.
We're going to suspend now, members, and we'll be back right after our votes. Okay, for about 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes till the vote, and then maybe half an hour for our votes, and we'll be back. We'll still continue to hear from Mr. Lindros. hopefully we've got 25 minutes still of your time. Wait for that. That's great. And we've got also Mr. Chris Nowinski's at the table. I think it's an opportunity for them also to tag team a little before Mr. Lindros may need to exit, and Mr. Nowinski will continue with his testimony. Okay.
A good term with this guy.
We are now moving over to the Liberals, to Madame Fortier.
Merci.
Oh, you may need your earpiece for this.
You
one.
will need
Yes,
your
you will
earpiece.
need your earpiece, yes.
Alors,
Testing 1, 2, 3. So I'd like to begin by thanking you for coming here to meet with us today. We know that your time is invaluable, and it's absolutely crucial that you be here. And we'd like to acknowledge that you took the time to come here. I'd also like you to know that you have parliamentary privileges here, and you should feel perfectly free to share your ideas, your thoughts, without any fear of repercussions. Now, my first question, we look at the National Hockey League and even other leagues throughout the world. Now, is there anything more that we can ask of these leagues to ensure that there are fewer concussions? What could we emulate?
In terms of different ideas from other leagues that we could implement in our
but
society, in our
justement,
areas?
maybe there are practices you've seen in other leagues or
sure.
something that we should look at out of Canada or even in Canada. I
Right.
want you to feel comfortable saying, things that we should do better
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and maybe where we can, do better.
I think that no one's tackled it, but the hits to the head, whether you're, unfortunately, always comes to mind is a player in Boston. His name is Zdeno Chara, and he's so much taller than everybody. Inevitably, there's some contact here and there. But he does his absolute best not to have that contact occur, and especially playing with somebody like Patrice Bergeron that's gone through concussion. He's very mindful of that. That culture, that idea of, or that protection, getting rid of hits to the head. That's a real easy one. We spoke of starting to hit or learn to deal with body contact after we've gone through puberty and had more of a level playing field. I think that's a real easy one. I don't know what goes on sometimes in parents' minds when they want to put their kid through hockey 12 months a year. I mean, arenas are great now, but they're not the end-all be-all places to be, and everyone needs a break. I think it's true for everything, the research is coming back that kids that are taking breaks are doing better. So I think that's a great one. It's acting on these things. We know that Dr. Carolyn Emery has done the research on the contact. We know common sense says that we don't have the contact. The injuries are going to go down, concussions are going to go down, yet we still have the contact. So why is that? Where are there groups? Where's Hockey Canada on this? And it's a tough one. But I think it's a pretty easy fix. It wouldn't take a whole lot to change. And I think it would be for the better. We're still going to have great players and actually probably better players because they're going to be better skaters. They're going to be better stick handlers and puck movers and think the game differently. Trust me, picking up to learn how to work someone off a puck physically, accepting or giving body contact is not. You can pick that up pretty quick. Yeah.
Vous avez fait mention d'être
You said that you're a parent. And of course, parents have a role to play, and a major role in the lives of their children, teenagers, when they want to become hockey players, volleyball players, across a whole host of sports. And you said that athletes and youth learn bad habits. But how can we support the parents to better educate their own children? Some of the testimony that we've heard from young people who have been concussed, well, their parents were involved obviously. So how can we support the parents in their educational role?
Awareness in general, yes. I mean, like I mentioned before, I think we've got great doctors, we've got some great groups, and they have some wonderful videos and things along that nature. If we could run through these, have all our best doctors agree on something, on one video, and make it available, and make it part of. If we went to a broader picture, and you thought of, when I say Amber to you, what do you think of? You think of a missing child. If I was to say Rowan to you, and being from Ontario and having Rowan's Law, I would want that to associate with concussion. So can we get a video? Can we have a website? You know, it's got the Canadian flag on it. People can go on there with comfort, knowing that it is the best of the best. This is what our government has to offer, and we have testimonial and different videos that have been vetted by our good people, and people can go on and learn. People can get. They know that it's not coming from different parts of the world with people with different ideas or different agendas. It's pure and it's from the heart, and it's the best of what we have to offer, and learning that way if you want to go from parent down.
Thank you very much.
We're moving over to the Conservatives and Mr. Martel again.
Oui, Eric, je veux juste savoir.
Eric, just out of curiosity, in your junior years, were you ever concussed?
I don't recall having any situations. It was really interesting, and it took a while, and I got extremely angry. Like personally, I went from being a really good player and improving and going through and doing really well in the best league in the world and playing at the highest level, to going through concussion, and it changes you dramatically. It changes your outlook on things. It changes you from within. There's huge fears and cutting through the middle. You have it on the outside that you're okay and so on and so forth, but you're never the same. You don't think as quickly. You don't react as quickly. Now, I can sit there and I can go to a quick game of pickup and I can be doing just fine out here. But to play at the highest level, that is your edge, is your quickness, your ability to adjust, your ability to read and react. And going through the concussions erased me of that. And I got really upset and depressed. I was extremely angry. I continued to try and play, but I wasn't the same. I wasn't as sharp. I wasn't close to being as good as I once was, and it takes a lot out of your heart too. It's a difficult thing to go through.
During your junior years, in particular, when you were at that level, were you ever concussed before the National Hockey League?
I don't recall being concussed in junior. I'm trying to think back, and I don't believe that that was the case. No.
Oui, parce que je pense que.
Well, I feel like that the hockey culture is in the process of changing, and so are the rules and regulations. I think that we're making headway, and I don't think that Scott Stevens' hit would be legal nowadays. It was a hit that was unexpected, and those kinds of hits that lead to multiple concussions wouldn't be permitted nowadays. So I think that we're making tremendous headway. When you were concussed, I'm sure that you consulted with a number of doctors and physicians. So in your opinion, what would be the percentage in terms of improvement in treatment since your first concussion? How far have we come?
In terms of improvement, I think we've come in terms of treatment, I can't point my finger to treatment that is the light switch. It's the same old. It's rest. It's controlling heart rate and functioning as you increase your heart rate, without nausea, without dizziness. But all that was available in the 90s. This is why we're so far behind, is that we haven't gotten to these steps. We haven't come up with anything, really clear and new. And it's a bit disheartening, to be honest with you. Awareness has picked up. There's been a lot of great positive things that have come from. I guess it'd be the silver lining of a dark cloud. And you've got a wonderful player like Sidney Crosby that had to go through certain situations, and luckily he came back and hasn't missed a beat, and is doing quite again amazingly well. But if it wasn't for him having his troubles, or if it wasn't for other players going through it, then we wouldn't have had the attention that it's gotten. And our window on this is now. We've got to start moving on this now. We've talked about it. We've got to come up with consensus and come up with what are our 3 or 4 major things that we're going to do, and who's going to be in charge of it as things go forward, as the faces in here and the representations of other parts of Canada, change and move on. How can we always make sure that we're constantly looking out for the improvements that we want and have the right people in there?
Thank you, Mr. Lindros. We're moving over to the Liberals right now. Mr. Fisher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I know how you don't like to talk about yourself, but Mr. Martel has started, so I'd like to continue if I could. I think about you, and I represent Dartmouth, Cole Harbour, in Nova Scotia, so of course I think about Crosby quite often. You're both players that missed extended periods of time due to concussions. Now, Mr. Martel had suggested that he thinks, and I kind of agree with him, that there might be some type of change in the culture of hockey that's begun. When you were concussed, I felt, rightly or wrongly, that you were rushed back. When Crosby was concussed, I felt that myself and maybe the fans felt a level of protection of Sid that felt maybe they were concerned that he might be rushed back. Am I on? I'm just.
It's different times, and looking back, yes, we learned from looking back, but we're not going to gain anything through this. I mean, I was having a tough time. They sent me to the migraine specialist in Philadelphia. He said, you don't have migraines. Go out to Chicago and go see so and so. And then it was a matter of, because this is all very new, and God, sitting out a week for something that you can't see. It's not a hairline, it's not a fracture on an X-ray, it's not bruising or swelling somewhere, or it's something that you can't see. And although you are, for the most part, 90% on, you're not on. You're not there. You're not.
Pressure to return?
There's pressure to return with everything. And again, I would not look to pro sport as.
I know.
I would not look to pro sport for this. I think things have improved greatly. I am really happy that we didn't lose Sidney Crosby. I think that's huge.
We had a young goalie in here a couple months back that kept getting run, and they would suspend the players that would run him, and they would get their 4 games or 6 games or 8 games, and they would come back and they would do the same thing. Right. And their family's opinion, I hope I'm getting this testimony right, but my recollection of their family's opinion was that the suspensions didn't work. And you had said that take head shots right out of the game with suspensions.
Right.
Do you think that will work, or do you think that the suspensions need to be massive, 30 games or 10 games or 12 games?
I look back to what Dave Branch did in the OHL and CHL that from what I saw, and taking what would normally be a 3-gamer, he was turning it into 10. Dave Branch he's not afraid to do what's right. He's a wonderful man. And we're lucky to have him, really overseeing things. I can't speak to what goes on in terms of somebody running a goaltender. If it's happening a lot, then there's something going on, and it would certainly be deterred with 10. I think, but I'm not there, and I don't know the ins and outs of it.
You talk about data sharing and knowledge sharing, and we've also heard that there might be a.
Just interrupt 1 sec.
Yes, absolutely.
But if you go to 10, and here's what happened, then on the back end of this, as coach would say, you're not going to have the fighters. The fighter's not going to come out. If the referees go and referee consistently, strongly, assertively, then if it's only a 2 or 3 game suspension, and the next guy he comes out the next game, then whatever coach, whatever team has got that goalie on it, I'm sure there's one guy going out there to go have a little chat with whoever ran him and had that 3 game suspension. You go to 10, I think that erases that. I think it cleans it up. I think it stops it from even happening the next time. But refereeing is a huge part of this as well. But sorry, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So you're bringing up another interesting point then. So you talk about if you make that 10 instead of 3, you get rid of the fighters in the game. You know, I've seen that change as well. Now you don't have a fighter in the game that's just a fighter that sits on the bench to just a fight. They have to be able to contribute. They have to be able to play.
Detroit started that, right? They went to 4 lines, and you'll see it even now. You'll see all the way through that. There's very little. The coveted guy is the one that can, that can perform on kind of both sides. If you look at Wayne Simmons or Wilson. Wilson's a huge example in the East. For sticking up for his teammates, but being able to perform as well. So I'm sure no one wakes up and says, I really can't wait to go fight.
Thank you.
No one wakes up to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Lindros. Now we're going to move to our last member that will ask questions for 3 minutes, the NDP. And then after that, we'll have a transition. So this is our first round. We'll move over to Mr. Chris Nowinski.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Chair, because, some of us we're not just big fans of yours, Eric, but we're big fans of Chris as well. So I wonder how well you know Chris's work. Yeah, but maybe before we get a chance to hear him kind of flesh out some of the work that he's done, do you have any quick ideas or observations on some of the work that he's done and that what's being done in the United States that we could be doing here? You talked about us being more cooperative. Maybe talk about evidence gathering. Maybe talk about
I think in Chris, you'll talk about this, but
yeah, I got 3 minutes, so take it.
Good.
Take away.
We need a bank up here too. We need a brain bank, and can you elaborate on that? They're not
sure
setting it up is.
Happy to. Well, what we found has been very effective in helping us understand the long-term consequences of concussions, repetitive brain trauma, is by studying the brain after someone's passed away. And so there are brain banks here, and there are folks working on this. But we found that it's a very positive investment. It sort of helps us really appreciate what's happening on a molecular level, on a biological level, but also the stories of people's lives and how these injuries affect them, and sometimes lead to very, very tragic outcomes.
So can you just clarify for me then? I don't know. My riding is Windsor, Tecumseh it's called. So I'm right across from Detroit. I don't want to name names, but we have wonderful athletes who have made. Pardon?
Fergie Jenkins?
It could be.
My parents are from Chatham.
Oh, okay, good. Well, no, I'm talking about some other names from the area who have donated their brains, or their families have.
Yeah.
So I thought we had a bank. So what do we have compared to, what do we have now compared to what you're saying then, Eric or Chris, about a brain bank? What?
Let me just hit this before.
Sure.
I want them to work together.
Okay.
And it's just asking a lot, especially of the structure of research in medicine. But my deepest heart of hearts, I wish that they could work together. Yeah, take what's existing and go.
Okay.
Go from there.
So right now they're separate. The system that we have is
Not affiliated.
not affiliated. Okay.
Am I correct with saying that? Is that?
Yes, but you don't necessarily always need all the scientists working together. I mean, there are different perspectives on this disease, and the brain bank you're referring to, the neuropathologist is, for example, chosen to be an expert witness for the NHL in lawsuits, which is something that would probably prohibit future brain donations and it's a complicated political field. But the important thing is you want more people working on this, whether it's independent or whether it's collaboratively, because it's a powerful method of research. I'm still trying to convince Eric to pledge his brain to me, but we'll get to that at some point.
Once you collaborate, once there's full-on collaboration, I'll sign up. But until that,
Well, listen, you guys are a great tag team. This is going to conclude our first round with Mr. Eric Lindros. You're welcome to stay and still participate. We are going to move over to Mr. Chris Nowinski. Mr. Nowinski is a Harvard grad, played in the NFL. And what we have him here for is all of that, but he is the co-founder and CEO of the Concussion Legacy Foundation.
Thank you.
Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And it's an incredible honor to be here, especially as an American invited to help this conversation continue. And I'll share with you what I can. I have a short opening statement, and I'll use it as an opportunity to give you an overview of things that might move the discussion along. I've been in this area in multiple ways, starting as a patient. So for my background, right now I'm the CEO of the Concussion Legacy Foundation. We have a sister organization here, Concussion Legacy Foundation Canada, that's led by my colleague Tim Fleischer, sitting behind me, a former Canadian Football League player. I did not play in the NFL. I was not that good, but that's okay now. I'm a co-founder of the Boston University CTE Center. It is the center that has the world's largest brain bank of athletes, led by Dr. Ann McKee. I advise multiple sports organizations, and I consider myself an advocate down deep, but I also did go back to school and get my PhD in behavioral neuroscience, so I'm able to talk about the research more effectively. So I got into this the hard way. Concussions were never part of my life until they were all of my life. I played all sports growing up, football at Harvard, but then I chose to become a professional wrestler with WWE, which was the most fun job in the world, until I got kicked in the head and got a concussion. Now, the problem was that I didn't realize as a 24-year-old Ivy League graduate what a concussion was. And I blacked out, and I had a throbbing headache, but I was able to complete the match, and so I didn't think that was enough to tell the athletic trainer. And I lied and hid my symptoms for 5 weeks until they got so bad that the symptom that forced me to stop was I developed what's called REM behavior disorder. I developed sleepwalking. I jumped through a nightstand off of a bed. And that has actually haunted me until this day. I still struggle with it. And my sleep is so impaired, I actually sometimes don't want to go to sleep. I fear it. But I didn't understand the risks. And so once that happened, I was honest about my issues. And for me, it was too late. Till this day, 16 years later, I still struggle with headaches. I still struggle with other symptoms. I can't exercise without feeling nauseous. But where I stand today, I'm happy to be where I am, and I know many people suffer far worse. But it did open up my eyes to the problem that it wasn't just me dealing with this. I was lucky to be sent to one of the world's experts, Dr. Robert Cantu, outside of Boston, and he helped me realize how I'd gotten to this point. And he did it in a very interesting manner. He asked me how many concussions I'd had before this last one, and my answer was 0. In 19 years of contact sports, I'd never had a diagnosed concussion. And he said to me, well, I know you don't think you've had one, but how many times were you hit in the head and you saw stars, you were dizzy, you're confused, you forgot where you are? And I started laughing because that happened so often, and I just never called it a concussion, and I never told anybody about it. Like, I have vivid memories of the sky going from blue to orange in football games, but it wouldn't last so long that I would have to actually pull myself out. And so he taught me in that session that I didn't know what a concussion was, and it turns out most athletes of my generation didn't understand it. That rest was critical for recovery, and by barreling through every one and ignoring them, I'd made my damage much worse, and that there may be long-term consequences down the road. And at that point, I didn't really appreciate that. And at that point, we didn't know as much as we know today. And right now, we know far more. So my first aha moment was that in talking to Dr. Cantu and then reading the medical literature he pointed me to, we've known this for 100 years that concussions are bad for you. We've known that we shouldn't be putting people back into games, and we ignored it for various reasons. Partially, I think, from the influence of professional sports wanting to control this, partially from athletes not wanting to believe what was going on and not being educated on this issue. But it wasn't just really a medical problem. The bigger problem at that moment was cultural. We didn't want to deal with it. And so we were hiding this. And so part of the work that we did at the beginning when I started the foundation in 2007 was just to raise awareness of this issue and to say, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. You know, we don't have to throw away our health by trying to be a hero by fighting through these concussions. And I think, luckily, that's one of the great advances that we've made in the last 12 years is that we now realize that athletes shouldn't be going back. We now have amazing spokespersons like Eric Lindros telling young athletes, you don't need to be a hero in this situation. And so we've made some progress there. So the next part I want to focus on is the long-term effects, because this helps inspire how much effort we should spend in preventing these problems. And when we talk about concussive long-term effects, it's sometimes harder to understand because we talk about them as symptoms, whether it's memory issues or depression or anxiety or sleep issues or headaches. Pathologically, it often doesn't have a great name. We have post-traumatic degeneration, we have white matter changes, we have microbleeds, we have all sorts of cellular abnormalities that we pick up, but it's not a smooth story. What has become a very interesting story, though, is the research on chronic traumatic encephalopathy, this degenerative brain disease we used to call punch drunk because we thought it was only in boxers. It turns out it's in basically all contact sports. It's in military service. It's been seen in victims of abuse. If you get hit in the head too many times, it appears to be able to spark a degenerative process that can lead to symptoms that sometimes look like Alzheimer's, but in midlife can look like a bipolar disorder. We're talking about cognitive issues, behavioral changes, mood disorders, and we've learned a lot. How I got involved with the brain bank is I said we need to figure this out faster, and we reached out to Boston University and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs with Dr. McKee. And we said, if we get you brains of athletes, will you study them and help us answer this question? And they've been amazing to the point where last year we had, it used to be that I had to call widows when someone passed away. Now, we got 175 brains in last year with 90% of the people calling us. We literally get multiple calls a day of people who've lost somebody who says their life went off the rails and we think it's due to CTE. We look at those brains. The really uncomfortable part of this is that we see the disease in 70% of the donated brains. And these are the donated brains mostly driven now by the families. So this disease, we cannot diagnose in living people. We have no clinical diagnostic criteria for doctors. And yet families are right 7 out of 10 times in diagnosing their loved one with this. That tells me that this is probably a much bigger issue than we realize. So we don't know how to diagnose it. We can't treat it. We don't know exactly how it progresses. We don't know exactly why it progresses. We don't know all the risk factors or all the risk modifiers, but we have learned a lot. We know that what the symptoms that appears to cause, we need to keep digging into that. We know they can be destructive. We've learned, and this is important for this, we don't see a correlation between diagnosed concussions and the disease. Based on our experience, the assumption is you get 1 or 2 concussions and never get hit in the head, your risk of CT is microscopic. But in 20% of our brains that have had CT, we have no diagnosed concussions in the history, but they have thousands of hits to the head, thousands of hits through football or ice hockey or rugby. And the correlation appears to be with thousands of hits to the head or number of years you play. And if you play a couple decades of a contact sport, we see increased risk of not only CT, but Lewy body disease, which can cause Parkinson's symptoms. So it appears to be a dose response issue, and this is an important construct for policy. When we published on our football experience in 2017, we had 110 of 111 NFL players with the disease, 7 of 8 Canadian Football League players with the disease, 48 of 53 college football players, and then 6 of 26 high school football players, and 0 of 2 youth football players. What that shows you, a little bit of a correlation there, is that the longer you played, the worse off you are. And so that maybe gives us a window into what we should do going forward. Hockey has actually shown a similar experience. 9 of 9 NHL players studied for this disease have had it. But we've recently published 4 of 8 youth hockey players that we studied had it. Youth meaning, non-professional. They all had died. The 4 who had it all died by suicide at the age of 30 or earlier. All had significant concussion histories. This is an issue that we need to really dig into. We've also seen that the earlier you start, the worse off the disease appears to affect you. We need to have a discussion around we're hitting kids in the head while their brain's developing appears to cause consequences. You don't need to be a neuroscientist to realize that's probably true. And so I think we need to talk about that in terms of our prevention efforts. And then when we talk about going forward, I think we need to focus on education, we need to focus on research, we need to focus on prevention. And I'm happy to dig into a lot of good ideas that we have. But I think the prevention issue is one that this is an important role for the government to play. We think about where government protects young people. You set ages for when they can do dangerous activities, right? So what age can you drive a car? What age can you smoke a cigarette? What age can you drink? We also regulate exposures to dangerous things for the brain. We regulate how much lead you can have in paint in your home or in gasoline because we know it causes brain damage. Well, if that's the case, maybe we should regulate how often you're allowed to let your child get hit in the head or how many concussions you're allowed to have, because you will change the course of their life if we don't take this issue very seriously. And then I know Eric's been avoiding the discussion of professional organizations, but I'm in a different position, never having participated in professional sports. And the honest, we should maybe perhaps talk about the terrible leadership that we're seeing from professional sports on this, the denial of these long-term consequences, the historical abuse of players, of putting them back in and saying that everything's going to be fine. We've made some changes, we've had some advances, but it doesn't mean your kid's going to be safe, and it doesn't mean your kid's going to get the right message. So thank you for having me. I'll end my opening statement there, and I look forward to your questions.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nowinski, and we're going to move over to Dr. Doug Yolfson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Nowinski. So I'm an emergency physician, and we took an amount of part of our training was sports medicine, and part of it was environmental medicine. And what I mean is exposure to whatever environments you have. It is refreshing to see sports in general listening to the medical profession in the days of when heat illness was first being recognized. A lot of people don't know this. 500 Americans a year die of heat illness, and the vast majority of them are athletes and military recruits. And it used to be that coaches prohibited the drinking of water during practice because they thought drinking water made you weak. They actually made athletes put on rubber suits and exercise in the hot sun because all that sweating would make them lose weight. Right. And if they died, well, they shouldn't have been there in the first place.
They weren't tough enough.
Yeah, they weren't tough enough, exactly. And we've also found that in regards to prevention, we still sometimes hear this fatalistic, well, if people do this, they're going to get hurt. But you can you can do activities that are risky and minimize the risk. I downhill ski. I wear a helmet. Mm-hmm. I ride a motorcycle. I wear a helmet and armor. You try to minimize it, but we still find, as you say, in the leadership in sports, particularly the professional level, and in the media. There's a rather famous Canadian sports broadcaster known for very loud shirts. Yes. He tends to get very hostile when people mention increased protective gear or getting the fighting out of hockey. And he actually says very terrible and derisive things to people who say there should be no fighting in hockey. Do you think that professional sports and the media should be playing more of an influence if we're going to change the culture of sport?
That's a great question. I do think it is incumbent upon pro sports to play a positive role in this issue. I think we have to appreciate and draw a fine line of what is the purpose of sports at the professional level and what is the purpose of sports at the youth level. I, as somebody who used to be in what some people call sports entertainment, I look at all professional sports as entertainment. And so, no disrespect. So, there is some aspect of, I'm an advisor of the NFL Players Association. They choose to play the game. We tell them the risks, and they think that's the best decision for them or their family, and that's okay. But they also, every professional sports league has influence into the youth sports, whether they underwrite it or fund it or market to it. And so they need to send the right message about this issue. And so it's sort of a long-winded answer here to say, I don't think we need to ask them not to have a dangerous sport if that's what they want to have, if that's going to bring in the revenue, that's okay. But they can't minimize this injury, and they can't set the wrong example on television that's going to hurt kids. And so, for example, when an NFL or NHL player who clearly shows concussion signs on the ice or on the field is allowed to go back into the game, and they pretend like that's okay, that is the worst public health messaging you could possibly imagine, because we all theoretically trust that organization to be doing the right thing by those players, and we need to hold them accountable for doing the wrong thing in that situation. And the media as well. We just launched a program called the Concussion Legacy Foundation Media Project to train broadcasters on how to cover concussions the right way, because they've never had any training, and so some of them are old school, but that's because no one's ever told them otherwise. And they don't appreciate what the risks are if you put somebody back there that they could die on the ice from another blow to the head, or just have their life completely derailed that's going to affect their children and their family. So it's an important question, and we do need to ask for more.
All right, thank you. How much time do I have? 2 minutes. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a good lesson, I think, because I think the culture is, and it's not just with head injuries; it's with all sorts of things. There was a number of years ago, there was an NHL series where one of their star players developed appendicitis, and they were reporting this as something very aspirational, that he was basically, the doctor was monitoring him and he was playing while on intravenous antibiotics. Because, of course, going to a hospital to get his appendix out, he'd be out of the playoffs. I was astonished as a physician that that physician still had a license to practice medicine for that. This is clearly not standard of care in any other profession, but somehow this was everyone was applauding this behavior in the NHL, which I was just gobsmacked by this. So I think that we do need more leadership from these organizations for this. Now, do you feel that even though you have different rules in a more junior league and in a professional league, or even more tolerances, does that have an influence on how the younger players will react, or how they will play?
Yes, I do think everybody the lower levels is modeling, based on, I guess, my personal experience, modeling what they see on television, right? That's a reality. So you talked about injuries, intentional injuries, running a goalie. If that's allowed at the NHL level or the higher levels, it would be emulated at the youth levels. That's sort of an accepted thing. And that's another reason why we need a great example from the higher levels.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're moving over to the Conservatives and Mr. Nettle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and if you'll just indulge me a quick moment here. I know that Mr. Lindros has a time schedule here. Just before I believe you have to go, is there anything we did not ask you that you would like to communicate to this table so that we can include this in the report?
I think we covered the spectrum. I was just thinking about the question to Chris in terms of media, and if we had a plan, media would love to cover this. Media's been going after this, and they've tried to tackle this in many ways, but there hasn't been change. So why write stories about something where it's nothing's happening, and they're getting away with it? If we had momentum and we got things going, they'd be right back on board, and this could be a whole lot stronger than just talk. That's kind of my last thought with that. But thank you very much for having me. I've got a flight to get back home, but I really appreciate being here. It's an honor, and good luck with everything. And if you need some help down the road, give me a shout.
Thank you, Mr. Lindros. Thank you.
Great to see you, everybody. Safe travels. Thanks.
Will do. It's very James Bond. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindros.
Mr. Nettle, you can continue.
Thank you, sir. Chris, thank you for making the trek here. And and it was interesting. I was just reading part of your bio, which has some awesome photos, by the way, as I was going through there. And I'm a huge WWE fan growing up, so very cool. But there's some pretty big cases where concussions have had incredibly terrible outcomes. You started to talk about that a little bit, and it kind of feels like you don't want to go into individual cases and you want to stay in terms of the data.
No, I'll go
as a
wherever
whole.
you want
Okay.
to go.
Okay. So there was a Maple Leaf named Wade Belak. I'm not sure. Okay.
Sure.
And I understood there was a scan done after his death that there was a depression leading up to, and then obviously he took his own life. And I guess my question is, and there's another one. I'm going to put in the same question for you. I read on CNN about, I can't remember how long ago it was, regarding Mr. Hernandez as well. And we had this conversation yesterday. Actually, sorry, it was this morning. It feels like yesterday. After caucus with a colleague of mine, because we were talking about this committee tonight. And he'd said that he'd read the same article about Mr. Hernandez's brain and the results there after, and obviously the terrible things that happened surrounding him. Can you give us some comments on the connection between the injury, the concussions, and mental health issues, wide-ranging mental health issues? Not yours personally, because I'm going to ask you about that next, but what you're seeing through the data you have.
Right. I've been lucky to co-author some articles on this in terms of psychiatric symptoms. So there's no question that concussions, especially when you're young, increase your risk of psychiatric issues later on, mental health issues. Suicide is a very complex act, but the literature is pretty clear in countries with socialized medicine. One big study and review of studies out of Canada recently that showed that even with just one concussion, for potentially the rest of your life, twice the risk of suicide. The two operating theories on that, one is it changes the way your brain functions, and the other one is it impairs your life. It impairs your ability to work, your ability to do things you love, your ability to have relationships. But that is a clear association in the data. So the reality is, when you look at some of these stories, we're trying to piece together what's happening. You're trying to build a data set off of it. But the issue of concussions leading to this larger risk of psychiatric symptoms or larger risk of suicide, that's in the data.
You say that the professional sports are not doing a good job, right? They're we saw what I'll comment as a ridiculously low result of the lawsuit between the NHL and players here in Canada, and the professional sports aren't doing a great job at dealing with this. Have you seen an increase in the support in terms of psychiatric, what you refer to as psychiatric help, but I'll say mental health support, professionals being deployed in circumstances surrounding concussion, or not really?
I know it's being discussed a little bit more, and certainly the leading researchers on it are aware of this, but it's not a common conversation. It's not, I'll give you an example. We have a brain in our brain bank of a young man named Austin Trenum, who had a concussion on a Friday night, didn't quite get great guidelines on how to spend a Saturday, and had sort of a stressful Saturday, went out with friends, concert, this and that. And Sunday took his life. And when we looked at his brain, we didn't, of course, see CT, but we did see white matter changes. And his suicide was preceded by an argument with his parents about doing his homework. They went upstairs and took his life. And I'm sure there was no conversation about potential psychiatric symptoms, potential abnormal behaviors, potential emotional behaviors with his parent when they left the emergency room. And so preparing parents for your child's not going to be themselves for the next few days is an important conversation to have, or at least we need to research whether that advice would lead to better outcomes.
Over now to the NDP and Ms. Hardcastle.
Caught me in the middle of swallowing. I just wanted to ask a little bit more, if I can, Chris, about the Concussion Legacy Foundation. You started with soccer and football with a prevention program. So what was your rationale, or you must have had some data or some evidence that told you, like, why did you start there, and maybe you can fill us in.
Certainly. So the effort to ban heading in soccer before a certain age, which right now we're talking about, ban all purposeful repetitive hits to children's heads before age 14. Like, that's a goal that we haven't reached. With soccer, it was based on studies. There's one important study showing that about a third of concussions that were happening in middle school soccer players were due to the act of heading, to kids trying to put their head in the same space and competing for a ball. So we said, well, this is a skill you don't need to have when you're young. You can pick up heading when you're older. And so it was, let's cut a third of concussions out of middle school soccer. And the other preceding moment was we found our first case of CT in an American soccer player who was a young man who died in his late 20s of Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, which we have now found is linked in some way to CTE. So we use that case to say, look, you don't need to have this exposure to repetitive head hits. You know, try this when you get home. If you find a kid who has never played soccer, throw a ball at their head, they'll usually duck. That's because they're smarter than we are. And we're the ones who tell them, no, stick your forehead in the way and hit it back to me. It's not a natural thing. So that was the idea. And we actually, led by a bunch of great American soccer players like Brandy Chastain and Taylor Twellman, we were actually able to get this through. With football, we actually have this now much stronger data with hundreds of cases of CT in football players, that the old way of doing things is wrong and has been destroying lives. And the best solution we have is, let's reduce exposure for children for hits to the head. And one of the interesting things about the history of American football is that, you know, youth tackle football wasn't a thing until maybe the 1960s and 1970s. And so we're now seeing some of those athletes get older. And what we're finding very clearly in our data is those who started younger have worse outcomes. And so the answer is, if you play 20 years or 30 years of football and you're basically destined to have CT, why don't we cut out those first few years? It's not a skill. Again, football is sort of a unique situation. That's not a skill-based sport. Having played it, you know, it's about being an athlete. You don't need to start banging your head when you're young. We're actually recommending parents choose flag football based on the research we've seen, to say, cut out those 300 or 400 or 500 hits to your kid's head every fall, but still let them learn the rules of football and have fun. And then when they're older, their brain's a little more mature, they've gone through puberty, they can build upper body strength, they can be at a high school level that has trained coaches and athletic trainers, then maybe it's okay to play. But before that, it's not. And if you want to get to the big picture discussion we're having in the U.S., if you watched us on HBO Real Sports last week, part of the issue is that the NFL is underwriting this game in our country to the tune of over $200 million invested in youth tackle football in this century. And it's partially driven by the fact that their data shows that if you play youth tackle football young, you're more likely to become a fan later on. So it's driven by a financial decision, even though if you talk to leaders in football, pro coaches, college coaches, ex-players, they say kids should not be playing this. You know, you can't take a 40-pound kid, put a 4-pound helmet on their head and ask them to run into each other and expect good outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
3 minutes.
Okay. So can you share with us a little bit more of what you think is, when you're talking to us, you assume is common knowledge now about concussion? Because I'll tell you, we do get some briefing notes before witnesses come, and you just, when you're talking and passing about, under the age of 14, we're trying to prevent this because we know, you shouldn't have contact. I didn't know that. So should we be looking at, you heard Eric talking a little bit about promotion and education. So I guess what I'm asking you is not necessarily should we be educating, but what do you think are the big findings that are not disputable now, for for the developing brain? And are there like the top three? I don't know if there's three, there might be a dozen, but it sounds like we can hit the ground running with education with really solid evidence. And I'd like to hear a little bit more of that.
Sure. If you want to talk about things we all agree on that are sort of actionable, and there's some of this is built on some of the laws, that we have in the states. So we know that we sort of all agree where concussion occurs. Your brain changes function, and there are 40 symptoms you could have, but you only need one to assume a concussion. We know that person should rest and be gradually returned to sports in their life. That's agreed upon, but not always done. We agree upon the fact that we don't diagnose most concussions. And I think this is a critical point where we have an opportunity, is that most concussions athletes are still hiding. If they're old enough to understand they have a concussion. If they're young, they don't understand they have a concussion, and they ain't going to tell you. And you'd have to be a doctor to recognize a concussion in a 7-year-old by examining their behavior, because 7-year-olds' behavior is all over the place. We know that concussions are an important enemy, but there's something called a subconcussive impact. So let's just imagine if it took a 100G hit for me to get hit in the head and have double vision for 10 minutes. I also got hit in the head a bunch of times at 99 Gs. Even though I didn't feel anything, it was below the threshold of causing double vision, you're still microscopically potentially damaging your brain, and those add up over time. And so it's very clear that it's not just a concussion issue, but the more hits to the head and the harder they are, the worse off you are, even if you don't have symptoms.
To Madame Fortier and the Liberals.
Merci beaucoup d'être ici.
Thank you very much for being here today. Just out of curiosity, I know that you conduct research. Are there as many young female athletes whose brains you look at, or do you mostly look at male brains?
So we work very hard to recruit female brains to the brain bank, but of 700 brains, our number of female brains is just over 10, I believe. Part of that is because we're heavily football in our brain bank, which very few women play. But the other one is in America, we didn't allow women to play contact sports until Title IX, really. It wasn't equal opportunity. So we don't have a lot of older female athletes. And so we are very aggressively trying to raise awareness that we need female brains. We need to understand those differences. And there's no question we expect to find CTE in former female soccer players, ice hockey players, and other sports.
J'avais la bonne perception, donc la majorité, c'était des...
That's more or less what I thought. So the vast majority is men's brains. I see. Well, our committee is attempting to see what we can do at a federal level. And with the time that I have left, I'd like to know from you what you believe that we can do as legislators to make progress on this issue.
So I'll try to be as concrete as possible. From a policy perspective, what's in Rowan's law is very similar to what's in the laws that exist in every state in the U.S. If you're going to play sports, everybody needs to be educated on concussions. And that means we require it for coaches. We require it in many states for the athletes. And in some places, we even require it for parents, because parents don't realize that the average concussion isn't going to be diagnosed at practice. The symptoms may show up when the person gets home that night. And if they don't know what to look for, they won't piece it together. So mandating education through sports organizations, I think, is absolutely appropriate to do. I think in the U.S., we mandate you have to be cleared by a medical professional to return to sports after a concussion in most states. I heard about the backups for going to doctors as being a reason why people don't go get medical clearance. Finding a way to make that, to fix that issue, whether you need more trained doctors or whatever, it's absolutely appropriate to say you have to be treated by a medical professional and cleared before you can return to sports, because returning to sports too soon is often how lives get derailed. On the research side, it's hard to mandate specific things, but certainly convening a group to potentially put together a research roadmap, like investing that time of getting scientists together and say, where are the gaps and how do we close them? And I mentioned that sort of second, just because when I look at this issue as a public health problem, it's going to take decades to develop treatments for this or new ways to diagnose it using, biomarkers on the sideline. That's an investment of time and effort. But right now, we can draw a line in the sand and stop a whole lot of these problems on the prevention side, whether it's preventing the head impacts in the first place or preventing mismanaged concussions or preventing a child from hiding a concussion because we educate them better. And in terms of changing the culture, I would add, if you're going to do education for athletes, it can't just be asking athletes to self-report. Because asking a 10-year-old to diagnose their own brain injury in the moment they have a brain injury is an insane plan, right? What one program we put together and we do up here as well is called Team Up, Speak Up, where the primary message we give to children is not you need to look out for yourself. That's sort of the message that they have already gotten, but it's look out for your teammates. Your teammate is probably not going to know they're concussed. And so if you see something, it's your responsibility to speak up to a coach, to a parent and say, you have, that I'm worried about them, check them out. So anyway, and then prevention wise, I do think looking into the idea that there should be minimum ages before it's open season on a child's head in sports is important. And I look at that like lead exposure. I mean, the idea that we have kids in America at 5 years old, again, 40-pound kids putting on a 4-pound helmet and running into each other, and we know they're getting hit in the head hundreds of times, and we also know at the NFL level, we have guys walking away from the sport and turning down millions of dollars because they don't want to take that risk. The idea that we put kids at this risk when they don't understand what the long-term effects could be, because they're not old enough to understand what the long-term effects could be, right? We usually don't assume they can predict this until they're 18. So when Eric mentioned checking at 15, to me, that's an obvious one. When we brought checking down to young ages, we weren't thinking about the brain. We were thinking about preparing them for the money down the road. From a public health strategy, it's absurd that we encourage kids to run into each other. Does anyone here play any adult sports leagues? Any ice hockey players? Any of the men here play in checking ice hockey leagues as an adult? Of course not. We would never do that to ourselves. Right? We're too smart for that. You need your brain down the road. And so the idea that we could put a 13-year-old into that situation is without giving them an option to not check is I think it's cruel.
You've got about a minute and a bit.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot to think about, eh? Anything else you'd like to share with us? Honestly, I think you have so much to offer that I would leave you the floor if you have something you think we should, like a takeaway we really need to look at.
Well, I think I would just reiterate that this is a big area. I sort of fell into this in my mid-20s and now I've spent 15 years trying to understand it. I just want you to have the confidence this is a solvable issue. You can come out of this with very concrete steps that'll put, all Canadian athletes and citizens in a better position where we have a better respect for concussions, a better respect for their brain, and change the course of the future of sports so that we don't deal with these outcomes that we're unfortunately uncovering way too much through the brain bank or through other situations. We can succeed at this in a short period of time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now we're going to move over to the Conservatives, and I understand you'll be splitting your time, the 5 minutes, Mr. Nuttall and Ms. Falk.
Thank you so much. And I just want to pick up exactly where Ms. Fortier was asking with you. So Chris, and I want to give you an example of where we're at in Ontario. And this is where, and there is no malice on my behalf of the other things that I'm going to talk about that are being taught to the hockey club. So I had a hockey mom who found out I was on this committee reach out to me. She's the assistant convener of one of the local leagues. And they've been required by law to have coaches have conversations with their teams regarding gender issues, okay? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, okay? So, let me be very clear. But they've never been mandated to have conversations about concussions, right?
Yep.
And you sit there and you go, how is it we're going so far on this track, but we haven't even left the station on this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, tell us,
No,
some of these things are
point.
so it sounds like you have so much information and data.
Yeah.
It would be nice you come and you are able to tell us about it. how much of it can you just throw on our desks and on the analyst desks to say, hey, here's the raw data, here's the stuff, please put it to work, and here's like, you know, the 10 recommendations I make to every school I speak to in the U.S. or whatever.
Well, there aren't many opportunities to talk about federal changes, right? So I would say there's a lot of recommendations, but I think that's an incredibly important point that I remember in college being required to go to a gambling thing for sport. Every athlete had to go to a gambling issue, even though there was like one case of people gambling on their own games in all of the United States. I can promise you that 10% of those athletes, if you're in a contact sport, are gonna be diagnosed with a concussion over the next coming season, and probably 30 to 50% are going to have them and not say anything. So the idea that you wouldn't mandate a concussion conversation, but you'd mandate anything else, is potentially a bad, poor, short-sighted policy. So I do think the idea of mandating, we're not born understanding our brain. And unless we actually sit there and talk about it, we're not going to appreciate it. Like, I didn't realize until I was 10 years into this work, or a couple years into this work, that we don't have pain nerves in our brain. And that's why we don't feel anything. And that's why we're so reckless with it, right? Is because you can't, the feedback you get is, I have to interpret this mild headache as a brain injury, even though I get mild headaches from, having the flu or other issues. So you're right that we need to ask more of ourselves. And then we have to also understand the pitfalls that are coming. So I'll give you one interesting study I just came across very quickly, is that a former colleague of ours, Christine Baugh, recently was able to survey 4 Division I college football teams and found that their likelihood of reporting concussions diminished the more concussions they got. Because if you survey doctors, they'll tell you they start a retirement conversation at 3 or 4 diagnosed concussions. And so in this survey, they found that, first concussion they tell you about, second one they tell you about, third concussion they might tell you about, fourth concussion fewer than half told you about. And not a single athlete in this entire group had more than 4 diagnosed concussions, even though many of them admitted to having more than 15 concussions. So there's a whole lot of social aspects to this that we have to prepare people for. This is very complex.
Ms. Falk.
This has been a very interesting conversation for me. I was never raised in contact sports, nor was my husband. But so we have a daughter who's in gym, so she's a little gymnast. Where they fall all the time. Sure, it's not contact, but they're up on a bar that's 6 feet high. You know what I mean? And what's very interesting is that she trains 12 months a year. That's just. There is no break, because when they break, even they notice a summer break, too much regression, and which makes it more difficult to compete. So that was an interesting takeaway that I had. But also too, I have a nephew. So where I'm from, Western Canada, and I don't know if it's like this here, but everybody's in hockey. Every single person. My nephew, 6 years old, they just put him in hockey for the first time. And he's a joke, because he's 5 years old and wasn't put in at 2 years old. Mm-hmm. So how do we change this culture even of putting our kids in such high pressure sports at 2 years old?
You're gonna have to hold on to that answer, and then we'll be back to the Conservatives. We're moving over to the Liberals, but gather your thoughts. And we have got Mr. Fisher. Is it?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Chris, you said we don't diagnose most concussions. And then you said that there are professional NFL players walking away because the risk is too high. How many NFL players are not coming forward and saying that they've got, potentially, they probably at this level know when they're concussed, but it's millions and millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. You've got pressure from agents, you've got pressure from coaches, you got interior pressure as well to make a living. How many concussions that are not going undiagnosed are because players are not coming forward?
Most.
Because I can't imagine too many players walking away from the game in fear of getting a concussion. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but probably more
choosing to play through their injuries. And they're making an informed choice, and you can't necessarily fault them for it. But players, as soon as they walk away, will be completely honest. And there's many quotes from athletes saying, "I get concussed all the time," but I wouldn't say anything, because if you get 2 concussions in one season in an NFL career, you're basically done, because they see you as a concussion case.
We've invited the CFL commissioner to this committee, and we believe he's very likely to come. If you could ask a question of Randy Ambrose, what would you ask him?
Well, I think the one issue that I've seen of his commentary is he still refuses to acknowledge the evidence of the linking playing football to chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And I think that's terribly misleading to the current players who are taking that risk with their brain for not a whole lot of money in the Canadian Football League. And it's such a bad example for every parent choosing, when and how their child's going to get into that game. If you're going to be the pro sport and be the only group of folks that are actually making, cash on this game, you have a responsibility to message the rest of the public the right way.
Influence of professional players on younger players is there. I mean, when kids are playing mini sticks, they're Crosby, they're whomever, they're Malkin. Eric had said culture of change needs to start with the younger kids. How do you cross that T? How do you get the younger kids starting to think about protection from potential concussions while acknowledging the fact that they're going to imitate the pros?
So you use multiple messages. So, for example, what we do is that when a pro athlete makes a great quote about how I didn't rush back into the game and I'm happy they pulled me out because I wasn't in my right frame of mind, we try to magnify that and send that message out to the young people that they're happy that the team held them out and they're happy to take a week or two off before they go back, and that's setting the right example. And at the same time with kids, we try to message them about how important their brain is, which is hard for them to understand. Team Up Speak Up's one way we do it. We try to share with them interesting statistics, like the idea that if you have 80 billion neurons in your head, if each one has an axon, if you lined up all those axons end to end, just in your head, it's about 500,000 miles. Go to the moon and back. And to help them appreciate how fragile their actual brain is as they try to understand how a brain even functions and helps them. So you gotta educate from a lot of different places.
I guess we need to have more of the top hits videos be top plays videos, the best saves, because I know that when I flip through my Twitter feed, Sportsnet continuously shows the hits of the day. Now, in fairness, TSN, all those groups, they show the plays of the day as well. But I think that some of the younger kids that are influenced by those pros are really excited by those hits of the day, the best hits.
Yeah, we're all still animals at heart. But I think we've had leadership in some sports that has started to emphasize the skills rather than the violence. And I would target, like in America, the lacrosse community. U.S. Lacrosse, Major League Lacrosse, has actually made all hits to the head penalties and are really championing the skills of the game, and it's doing well for their business.
Do I have a tiny little bit of time left?
Got about 30 seconds.
Okay. CTE connected to ALS. Can you give me 30 seconds on that? On that?
So there's many ways you can get ALS, and we haven't figured out most of them. But one, in looking, we know that NFL players, for example, have a greater risk of developing ALS than the regular population. And what appears to be happening in some of them, according to Dr. Ann McKee, is they're having changes in their brain due to the CTE that are overly affecting their motor cortex or the upper spinal motor neurons that appears to cause these ALS symptoms and motor symptoms. So just maybe one of 20 ways you can get ALS, if not more.
And we're back off to the Conservatives and Ms. Falk.
Awesome. Thank you. So back to my question. So how do we successfully shift the culture with parents? Like so, even with hockey though, right? Like you've got your fall, and then you've got your spring camps, and then you have your summer camps, and then you're back into the fall. Like how do we shift that?
So one of the things that hurts us in our concussion and CT prevention work is the professionalization of youth sports. Right? When you tell me that your daughter's forced to, do 12 months a year of gymnastics, but asked to do 12 months a year of gymnastics because she's going to lose skills over the summer, like who cares?
Yeah.
If she has a drop off of skills over the summer, no child's body can take 12 months of any activity over and over again. And so that is a bit of an educational issue. Like in the U.S., we're sort of fighting a capitalism issue that there's a group of coaches who have found that if they sort of prey on parents' fears that their child will fall behind, or they sell them the idea of a college scholarship because education's costing too much now, that they can convince them that they have to play their sport year-round to succeed. And, I'm a new parent, and that's something I'm going to have to fight. But I've committed myself to fighting it because it's not the way it used to be. It's not the way we grew up.
Right.
But now there's a financial incentive, to have your child in a sport year round. And frankly, while we need kids having exercising and all that stuff, like we need to de-emphasize, a little bit of this, the chase of this glory that we have to realize that 99% of people who are playing sports are never going to get paid for it or never going to reach the top. And it's not all about that chase.
And like, I literally know no different. I was never a gym kid. So it's like, oh, okay.
Well, of course,
and the
that's
thing
what
that
everyone's doing.
sucks is that she freaking likes it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so when she's at home, she's walking on her hands, right? And it's like, okay, you already do this many hours a week. Why are you still doing it, right?
Right.
And let alone the cost of it, right? It's ridiculous.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
And that's a message coming from the sports medicine community of specialization and giving people rest and playing multiple sports. And we need to arm parents with that information because the capitalist side is saying you got to do it all the time year round. You're going to fall behind. But we need medical professionals saying kids' bodies need a break. They can't do this all the time or you're going to have consequences down the road.
Thank you.
Yep, you got about 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. So, Chris, I know this is a bit of a hot button question because anytime we discuss healthcare with Americans, it's liable to end up needing the police or something. So I'm going to go there anyways, though.
Yeah.
And I think you heard me earlier on, which was in healthcare in Ontario. There's like this. They have a computer system which they have to create
reimbursement.
How do I bill, right? And so when you've got, the need for, when you're looking at somebody who's looks like they've got the effects of a concussion, personal trainer, some sort of massage therapy in some cases, potential look at somebody who can look at the nerve damage in other places of the body. Like there's this huge amount of people that are needed, right?
Right.
How do you guys tackle that in the U.S. with your system? When you see, let's just say, a young person, is it your SOL if you don't have insurance, or what happens?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you don't have insurance, you're in big trouble. That's a huge issue in the United States. I don't know how to solve that problem here. But so let's go back to the original question about billing codes and rehabilitation. I think you have identified a major issue here. If you don't have appropriate reimbursement codes and billing codes for doctors so they can give proper care for concussions, that's something you can fix, right? That's easy. We know that most people aren't going to need extensive therapies, but some are.
It further discourages doctors from taking it on.
Right, and and building
because
a practice.
Right, because we believe that if we believe it's about entertainment, it's about money, and Rosemary's, we've been talking about this on the side here. In that world, there is an aspect to that within the health world as well.
Right.
Right.
And just to give you an example, in the U.S., when we used to call our concussion education sessions concussion clinics because there was no physical clinics that treated concussions. Now there are well over 1,000. Like every major hospital has a concussion clinic where you send kids. They have a multidisciplinary team to help assess what's wrong and how do we fix you. Do you need vestibular rehab, visual rehab, cognitive behavioral therapy, whatever it is. They're doing it. And so kids are hopefully going to have better outcomes down
we
the
don't
road.
have that in Canada.
Yeah, that's something you need.
We're going to move over to the NDP. This will be our last questioner, Chris, and you may want to put whatever you want to put on the table for all of us to
Thank
hear.
you.
Okay, so how much time?
We'll give 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Do you want to take 5 minutes for last reps?
No, I mean, I feel like I've said a lot. Most of the
Okay,
things.
because I would like you to go back to telling us a little bit about what is common and what isn't disputed anymore. I think when Rosemary was talking about her daughter and how much her daughter loves it, that's been the problem perpetually, that kids love it. Then parents feel good when they see their kids doing it. The kids get positive reinforcement. They do it. First thing you know, you're, a fan paying the money for a professional sport. It's not just about the amateur, and it just cycles and cycles and cycles. And I just would love to bring it back to, like, what do we know now that, that we didn't know in the 90s, or what is not disputable? And you were on a roll a little bit. And I just would love to hear more about that. Even if you just want to talk about the developing brain, like when did we find that out? And
Right.
contact, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a good point. All right, so where do I take this? The interesting thing is, for a lot of the stuff we're talking about today, it's been in the medical literature forever, right? We've always known that, a hit to the head can cause your brain to malfunction, can cause structural injury, can cause symptoms, most of which are acute, but some can become very long term. We now know those hits to the head can lead to degeneration and problems down the road. We know that those hits to the head when you're young are probably worse. Kids take not only longer to recover, but there are things called developmental windows in the brain. And if you give a child a brain injury before they're supposed to develop a certain skill, a good example is if a kid has a brain injury before they're supposed to learn to speak, they're going to be delayed dramatically and they may never catch up. And so the idea that, that we need to really protect kids is sort of, I think, well accepted. And say what's accepted. I think what's interesting that's not accepted is that the idea that we shouldn't hit kids in the head. I think the best way to look at this. That is not an accepted premise in North America. And so I think that's, I like to steer the conversation there all the time. The best thing we can do for all of these issues, like we can get into medical billing, we can get into all this nuance of once you're in that system, what to do for you. But the biggest opportunity we have is prevention. And we need to use our influence and our knowledge to rein in sports. That's, in a lot of ways, has become more about boosting enrollment and capitalism and creating jobs than necessarily doing what's best for your kid. The idea that we have today year-round sports, it still boggles my mind. I had to deal with in my dissertation an issue where I was studying a soccer team at a high school. And I had put sensors on their head, and we were counting how many times they were hit to the head. And I didn't even imagine that the kids were also allowed to play on a private soccer team the other days of the week. So these kids were playing, and I didn't realize it until afterwards. And I was like, oh, God, I have to put that in my limitations, that these kids were also playing soccer somewhere else 7 days a week, some of them 12 months a year. When we look at how bad our brains are today at our brain bank, those are athletes that were playing probably 3-4 months a year, a season a year of sports. We don't have a lot of 12 months a year soccer players in there. We also don't have bigger, stronger, faster in there. That's something we don't talk about either. Our increased training and nutrition. You look at NFL team, they're 20% larger, and their brains they're faster than they were, and their brains are no tougher. And so the idea that we have solved, and this, you'll hear this, we've solved most of this problem and it's behind us, is not the most likely situation. We're still going to see the worst of this coming, which is why we're so dedicated to saying, let's draw a line in the sand. Let's fix what we can now. Let's stop creating this by letting kids get hit in the head for years while their brain's developing. And then let's really dig in and try to help these folks that have been damaged, because it's not just athletes, it's also our veterans, whether our veterans or your veterans. There are people who served our countries that need help, and unless we really invest and create this research roadmap and put money towards it, we won't have answers. And I'm now 40 years old, and I may need answers at some point. So I urge you to hurry up, because if it's not me that's going to be affected by this, it's certainly all my buddies.
We can't thank Dr. Chris Nowinski enough, as well as Mr. Eric Lindros that came in. You have been excellent witnesses. We thank you on behalf of all the members for your passion, your advocacy, and the research that you're doing, and the collaboration with Canada. So thank you, and we look to have this study completed by the spring, and we'll present you with a report.
It's been my honor. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Nuttall.
Mr. Chair, just very quickly, Chris, you came up here, and this isn't necessarily, it's not your country and all those things, and I think it really, really wanted to highlight that and say thank you. Because I know it's taking a lot of time out of your schedule to do that, and it just shows like how much you care, and we have a lot of respect for that, Chris. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you,
Mr. Nuttall. You're always welcome. Thank you. This adjourns our meeting.